Hello everyone and welcome to another Unreal Engine tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you a little bit about sound effects and music and how to add those into your project. This is only going to be a fairly basic tutorial, but I just wanted to show you how to implement sounds and things into your games because they can make a huge difference to how well your game looks. So I've just got a very basic little environment that I've just set up for the purpose of this. So I'm going to show you how to first of all just add a sound effect into your environment that plays when you're near it. I'm also going to show you how to attach that type of sound to a particular blueprint, and then I'm also going to show you how to have some ambient music that can then change depending on where the player is in the level. So we're going to get the player to walk into this building, which will then change the music. So let's get started, shall we? So I've got, first of all, I'm in a first-person shooter template, and I've got the starter content. Now, if we go into the starter content folder and go into audio, there are some free audio tracks already in here. I have imported a couple myself from a website called freesound.org. So I've got some basic ambient music, I've got some more action based music, but we're also going to use a couple of the free ones that are included in Unreal starter content, such as the fire and the birds. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to just do an ambient noise in the environment that gets louder or quieter depending on where you are. So we're going to use the birds. So if I look down here, I've got this one here called starter birds. As you can hear, basic ambient bird noises. But first of all, we need to create a sound cue. So you notice you've got two different types of file here. We've got the light. We've got this one with the sort of the purple one. This is literally the sound file itself. But then with Unreal, you can create sound cues, which just give you a bit of better control with how to use your sound effects. So I'm going to right click on these starter birds, and up near the top, there's an option called Create Cue. So I'm going to click Create Cue, and you'll see it's now added a cue file, and it's automatically named it the same name, but with cue on the end. So that's fine. We'll leave it as it is. I'm going to double click it to open it up, and we get this here. So we get what file is being played, and then we get the output to the speakers here. The only thing we really want to check here, if we click on the output, is that we want this to be looping, because what we don't want is for it to only play once and then never play again when we go near it. So make sure you turn looping on. So that's clicking on this node here and then choosing looping. If you look anywhere else, you can adjust the volume and the pitch and other things like that. So we're just going to save this, close this little window, and then what I'm going to do is click on this on the cue and drag it into the level, and you'll see you get this little speaker icon with a tick box. So I am going to move this. I'm going to basically make out like there's some birds in this bush over here. So I'm going to get the get my move tool, move this speaker over to where the bush is. So it's roughly in the right place, doesn't matter too much, about there will do. Okay, and then we're going to need to edit some settings over on the details panel here. So first of all, if we scroll down, we want to make sure that auto activate is turned on, which it is. So here, auto activate, and that basically just means that as soon as the game starts, as soon as the level starts, it will start playing this sound effect automatically. That's absolutely fine. We're happy for that, so keep that on. The other thing we need to edit though is the attenuation settings for the sound, and that basically means how far away can the sound be heard. So if you look under attenuation, there's a tick box here called override attenuation. So I'm going to click that, and now you see I've got this sort of wireframe sphere that's appeared, and there's a second one as well, which is much bigger. You see it's huge. This basically is the distance that you can hear it. So the inner sphere, this sphere here, this is where the sound is at its loudest. So in this circle, the sound cannot get any louder than it is when you're stood in this circle. This outer circle, basically the sound effect will fade from the loudest, and it'll keep fading until we get to the outer circle, in which case it will then be pretty much silent. That's quite a big area. I'm going to reduce that. So once you've ticked override attenuation, if you look a bit further down, you should see somewhere. Where is it? There it is. Under attenuation distance, there is the inner radius, which is that circle in the middle there. So I can change the size of that. And then you've got the fall off distance, and that is how far the sound will travel. So let's make it a bit smaller. I'll make the loud bit a bit smaller as well. Something like that, that'll do. Okay, so now it'll be at its loudest when we're in this little sphere. So pretty much when we're right up against the bush, it'll be its loudest, and then it will fade out as we walk away or as we walk towards it. So let's hit play and make sure that's working. So I'm going to hit play. There's the bush. I'm going to walk towards it. We should start to hear the birds. You can see it gets louder as I'm stood next to it. And as I walk away, it'll get quieter. Until eventually it stops. Okay? So that's a very, very simple way to add some little basic environmental sound effects to your projects. So you could do this with, I don't know, something like, say you've got a waterfall in your scene. You could have the rushing water sound effect that gets louder when you get near it, and all sorts of things like that. So that's just how to add a basic sound effect in straight into there. But I'm also going to show you, I want to show you how to add it to a blueprint as well. So if it's an item that you're going to want to maybe make multiple copies of, rather than having to copy the item itself and the speaker, you can put them all together in a blueprint. So at the minute, if I wanted to make a second bush with bird noises, I would have to click on the bush. I can hold Alt and then left click and drag to make a copy of the bush. But this one doesn't have the speaker with it. So I would have to get a copy of this speaker. And again, Alt and left click and drag. So I'm basically having to do the same like copying job twice, which is not really ideal. It's a bit awkward. So we can create a blueprint and add a sound cue into a blueprint, and that allows us to copy it over twice. So I'm going to go into the content folder, go into first person BP, and go into blueprints, and you'll see I've got some of the blueprints from previous tutorials in here if you have followed along with those. I'm going to right click, create a new blueprint class, and I'm going to choose an actor class. I'm going to do this with I'm going to make a fire, so I'm going to call this fire_BP, and then I'm going to double click to go into this blueprint, and then I'm going to add a component, and because I'm using fire, I'm going to do a particle effect, so search particle system, add in a particle system. I'm also just going to rename that to fire, and then over on the right hand side over here, I should be able to choose a particle effect. Now again, because I've got starter content, I have got a small set of particle effects I can use, and one of those is a fire. So I'm going to click fire and add that in. And there you'll see we've got a nice flame. What I'm also going to do though is add a component again, and this time choose audio. So you see there, click audio, and that will add in a little speaker. And then over on the sound section here, you can click and you can add in sounds. Now you can either add in the sound file itself, or you can add in the sound cue. So I'm going to use the cue again because it gives us sort of better control. And that's now added in the sound cue, and you can see the attenuation radius set up on there. These are actually looking okay for the radius, so I'm going to leave them as they are. But again, you can, down in the details panel, if you turn on override attenuation, you can then change the radius and fall off distance, but I'm just going to leave those as they are, and then see how it looks. But now I've done that, I should be able to go to my fire BP and drag it into the world. Let's put one like here, for example, and you'll see I've got my flame there with the sound radius around it. But if I want a second flame, I can literally just hold Alt, left click and drag, and there I've got a second one. I only had to do the dragging once. And let's just make sure this fire sound effect works. Yeah, it does. I'm going to move closer, louder. Let's move away, make sure it gets quieter. It does, but you can still hear it quite far away, so I might need to edit this. So let's remove that one, and we'll just edit this first one here. So yeah, the attenuation radius is actually pretty big on this. So you can edit a blueprint over on the details panel here. I just need to make sure that on this component section here, I need to make sure I click on the audio inherited section, and then from here I can scroll down and see the fall off distance on attenuation radius. So let's bring that down and bring the inner radius down a bit as well. Yeah, there we go. So that's fine. Okay, so that's how to add a sound to a blueprint so that you don't need to keep copying the little speaker over and over again. Okay, let's look at adding a sound effect during a animation. So at the moment I've got this door. This is the automatic door. Okay, but it currently doesn't make any sound at all. So let's just quickly edit the automatic door blueprint and add in a sound effect to that so that it makes a door opening sound. So I'm going to go into the automatic sliding door blueprint. And you might remember from the previous tutorial, this is the code that we set up to open and close the door. So I'm just going to add in a little function to play the sound effects here. So first of all, I'm going to create a custom event. So I'm going to right click and add custom event, and I'm just going to say play door SFX. Okay, and then from that we want to then do a play sound at location, because that's going to be important. We don't want this sound effect to be heard anywhere on the map other than at the door. So I did add in there it is, heavy mechanical door open. So that's the sound effect I want to use, and I'm going to get the location of the door frame and use that as the location. So dragging in door frame, I'm going to drag off of door frame and do get world location, and I'm going to plug that into there. Okay, now I don't think I made a sound cue for that, did I? No. Okay, let's quickly make a sound cue for the heavy door sound effect. I'll go back to my starter content, into audio. This heavy door sound effect is another one I got from freesound.org. I did not, this is not part of the free stuff with Unreal. So I'm just going to right click and create a cue. There we go. And let's check in here. We don't want it to be looping. We only want this to play once. And it should play again every time we walk into the door. So let's again just choose the sound cue, because it allows us to edit the volume and things like that. Heavy mechanical door sound cue. There we go. Right, so now we've got this little event, but this is not being triggered anywhere at the minute. So we need to actually have a look up here, and this one, begin overlap trigger, this is the bit that opens the door, and then this is the event that closes the door. So we want to basically add in our sound cue here. I wouldn't put it here after the timeline, because this update essentially plays every frame of the game whilst the doors are opening. So what that would do is it would constantly be starting the door opening sound every frame, so you just get like a bit of a juddery mess with the sound. So we're going to actually put it just here before it plays the animation instead, and that way it'll just play the sound file once, and it'll play it a bit smoother. So if I drag off here and then just search for that custom event that we made called play door SFX and add that on there, and do the same on this one as well, and add that in. So now we've got play door SFX on both the opening and closing. Click compile. Alright, and then let's go into the game, click play, and if I walk up to this now, it should play a door opening sound effect. There we go. So there's a simple way to add in some sound effects there to existing blueprints. Okay, let's move on to the final thing I was going to show you, which is around music in the game. So I've got some of this ambient calming music. Okay, that we're just going to have this on a loop. So I'm going to make a sound cue for this. I'm going to right click, create cue, and it's already named it appropriately, so I'm just going to click off that. I'm going to double click it. I'm going to click on the actual file bit here and choose looping. And then I'm going to drag this into the level. Now it doesn't really matter where you place this, because we're not going to use the attenuation settings. We're just going to have this play anywhere, no matter where we are. So let's just, I'm just going to put this quite far away just to make sure that it does do what it's meant to do. So let's just chuck it all the way over there for the minute and hit play. And yes, we can hear it perfectly clear. So it's definitely playing just fine. Okay. So that's our general audio for when we're walking around out here. We've got a nice bird sound. Run over here. We're getting our fire sound. Now let's check the door. And our door sound is playing as well. And the whole time this music is playing over the top. Okay. But what about if we wanted to switch audio? So in certain games, in most games, when your situation changes, the music can often change as well. So what we're going to do is swap those out. Just need to find that sound cue. Where did I put it? There it is. Let's bring that back over here, just so it's somewhere we can find it. Okay. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to act like inside this room is going to be like a boss. So once we go through these doors, we want the music to change and be a bit more dramatic. We're going to use this music instead. Yeah, which is a lot more dramatic. So we're going to use that as well. We need to create a sound cue for that. So create cue. And then we need to put this into here. Okay. Now, on this speaker, you'll see that it's got a little tick icon, and that usually means that auto activate is on. On this case, we actually don't want this to be on, because if I play at the minute, we'll probably get both bits of music overlapping each other and it'll sound horrible. Well, or the action music is actually just a lot louder, so you can't hear it at all. But yeah, we don't want this to be playing by default. We only want this to start playing when we actually get here into the door. So I'm going to just scroll down the settings here and find auto activate and turn it off. There it is. So we switch that off. So now when we play, we should just have our ambient music. Yes, there we go. Okay, so that's fine. So now we need to set up a trigger box that is going to swap the music over, essentially. So I'm going to get a trigger box. So over on the modes panel here on the side, I'm going to go to volumes and scroll down, you'll find a trigger volume. If you click and drag that into your world, and you basically need this to make sure it covers the area that the player is going to pass through so that they can't miss it. So I'm going to put this just on the inside of the door and also make it wider than the door, so there's absolutely no way that the player can walk through this door without triggering this event. Okay, so let's put that there. I'm going to rename the trigger volume as well to, let's put like boss music trigger, we'll call it. Okay, now with this still selected, so don't deselect this trigger box, keep it selected. We're going to go into the level blueprint, so go blueprints at the top and go open level blueprint. So there's already some stuff in here from a previous tutorial or a previous event. Oh, actually no, there's a new level mode that gives you a skylight where you can change the time of day. That's what that event is in there from that. Anyway, what we want is just nothing. We need to go to a blank area and right click, and because we've got that trigger box selected, it's giving us some context sensitive options to do with that trigger box. So if we go to add event and then go to collision and then add on actor begin overlap, and that's what we want that in there. We also want an end overlap that we're going to use in a minute as well, so I'm going to add that as well. So add event collision and then add on actor end overlap. We're going to add that in. Okay, but for now let's focus on the begin overlap. We only want this to work with when the player does it, so I'm going to drag other actor and I'm going to cast to the first person character, just to make sure it's only the player that sets this off. What you don't want is an AI character wandering through that door and triggering the boss music. So let's make sure it's only the character that can do that. So cast to first person character. Okay, and then we need to add in our references to our sound effects. So I'm going to just move the window over there. Back in the editor, we need a reference to both sound effects. So I'm going to click on our nice pleasant ambient audio there. So select it in the level, go back to the level blueprint and right click, and you can see here we can now create a reference to ambient calm cue. So I'm going to click on that and then go back in here and get a reference to this one as well. So click on that, back in the level blueprint, right click, create a reference to the action music. And then what we're going to do is we are going to fade. We're going to fade out the audio, so choose the fade out. So the ambient music is what we want to fade out. And here you've got some options for how much to fade it out and over how quick a time. So fade out, I'm going to say, let's make it 2 seconds so we can clearly hear it fading out. So fade out for 2 seconds, and the fade volume level, this is basically what level do you want it to fade to. In which case we want this to be completely silent, so we're going to fade it to 0. And then off of the action music, we want that to fade in. So we're going to choose fade in. We'll connect that up. And then again, we need to just check these. So fade duration, again, let's make it 2 seconds, so they should sort of cross over each other. Fade in volume level, it's like what do we want to get it to, and then there's also a start time, but we'll look at that in a moment. Let's hit compile and let's hit play and let's see if the music does indeed swap over when I walk inside. There we go. Okay, so there was a slight glitch in there where I walked out of this box, so I think what we need to do really is make this trigger box the entire size of the room. Basically make it the size of the boss fight area. Oh, that's moving the door, didn't want to do that. So yeah, let's make this basically fill this room so that we can't walk out outside of the trigger box whilst we're in the building. That ought to do it. Okay, so that should stop the music from juddering when we get inside. So I'm just going to try this again. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so there is obviously another issue there, and that's that the battle music isn't looping, so we need to do that. So let's just go into the sound cue, click on that and set it to looping. But yeah, the other issue is we actually wanted the music to stop when we come out of the building. And that is because we haven't done the end overlap event yet. So back in the level blueprint, we need to do the end overlap. It's the same, pretty much the same thing, just doing it the opposite way around. So we're going to cast to the first person character, and then we are going to get the in fact we could probably just share these ones, so let's drag off of here and do a fade in. Oh, okay, didn't need to do the audio component bit. Do a fade in. And again, fade in duration, we'll do 2 seconds. Fade into volume of 1. And then we'll do the same over here we'll do a fade out. Oh, I didn't need the audio component again. Just do fade out and then connect that up, and again fade out duration 2. So there we go. So now the action music should fade out and the calm music should fade back in. Let's have a look at that. So we've got our nice calm music. I'm going to walk up to the door. Boss music. And then back to calm again. Now, the other issue we might have is that the music essentially restarts from the beginning again every time. As soon as we walk into that trigger box, it will play the music from the start. You might not want it to do that. You might want it to continue from where it left off. So what we should be able to do from there is, let's try getting time. Which one is it? It might actually be off this one. Let's try dragging off this point here. Doing time. Get game time since creation. So that needs to go into the start time on there. And then this one, again, the same thing. If we do get game time since creation and plug that into that start time. And then try that. Now, because these are quite short and looping audio, it's kind of difficult to tell, but it should pick it up from where it left off, basically. So there's the start. If I come out quickly, and then run back in. Again, that sounded like it started from scratch again. Pretty difficult to tell with that, but that should be playing it from where it left off. Well, it doesn't seem to want to be doing it. That's unless I just keep walking here at exactly the right time that it should be looping across. But that's not too much of an issue at this point. I'll probably take a deeper look into that and do maybe another sound video afterwards, but that's really all I wanted to show you in this this tutorial. So I hope this helps you with your sounds, putting sound effects in your game, because it does make a huge difference having sound effects compared to a completely silent game. So yeah, please use these techniques in your projects, and I hope this really helped you. And yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. I will see you in the next video that I do.